Welcome to Western New York Athletics High School Football Preview Show for the 2023 season. I'm Stu Boyer, and we have quite a panel here. Francis Beck to my left, Tim Chifa to his left, and down at the end of the table is Tom Prince. So we're getting ready. The practice starts August 19th around New York State, and the season kicks off August 31st. So before we get into this season, we're going to take a quick look back at last season. But I want to put Tom on the spot here real quick because this is something he's talked about for years. This is not in the format, so I know you're mad at me. And he knows where I'm going with this. There's one significant rule change, and I know you're very happy about it, and I think every coach, player, and fan should be happy about it too. So let's get Tom to clarify that, and then we'll get into the regular programming.
No doubt. The rule that he's talking about that I've really struggled with is the holding call. And the holding call behind the line of scrimmage is exactly the call he's talking about. The call used to be, if you know from the NFL, if it's a holding from the line of scrimmage, they take it 10 yards back, right? High school, that's not how it's been. What they did was, if you actually held 5 yards behind the line of scrimmage, you got tacked on from where that was. So it was a 15-yard penalty, and there were teams that just could never survive or come back from that. So they are finally going to mimic what we know in the NFL rules, and it will be now a 10-yard penalty from the line of scrimmage. Thank you. I know I've been begging for it. And I know there are a lot of coaches, Stu, you and I always say it, like it hurts so bad when we see it. And a lot of the times, even on air, we don't know the penalty what's going to be until they actually lay it out.
Just keep walking backwards and backwards.
Exactly. And we've seen some long walks we really have not even realizing it.
All right, just wanted to get that out of the way, get off to a good start. We're going to start with Section 6, Class AA. Last year we had the Bennett Tigers win a New York State championship. That was the highlight of the season. And take it away, guys, with what other highlights you want to highlight from last season.
Well, obviously, you mentioned Bennett won the state title. Just a fantastic team with players that I don't want to say they're once in a lifetime, but they were truly special. You have Rashad Perry, who's now at Syracuse. You have Jaden Lewis, who's now at UB, a bunch of guys, and they really put something together that was really special.
Yeah, they were loaded. Just we had the pleasure of doing their games at Syracuse to watch them all the way, and I think you can say once in a lifetime. It was that special. I mean, just from top to bottom, there was no weak spots they had at all. You mentioned, the 2 superstars they had. They also had Antonio Davis, was a great quarterback. Clemens, who I think transferred to Georgia, I believe, so they lose him. So this is going to be an interesting season for them. No doubt about it.
Yeah, we're good.
Yeah, this is going to be an interesting season for them. They, they have to rebuild, and they lost a lot of talent, so it's going to be really interesting.
Listen, flat out. Bennett had a great year. What I also thought the benefit of Bennett was getting there the year before, right? They had the experience. They got the chance to understand that, bring back that core, and that was what was made. And I also loved what they did non-conference-wise.
Yeah.
They were aggressive in the non-conference. We talk about it. The teams that are aggressive in the non-conference schedule are usually the ones that are successful when it comes time to play. Listen, give Lackawanna credit last year, right? They had a great team that we saw go very far as they made it to the state semifinals themselves, right? Yep. We saw Randolph do the same exact thing. Randolph's going to be one of the teams we're probably going to talk about this year is how do you replace one of the best running backs in Western New York when you look at the amount of yards that young man put on out there, right? So there's a lot of things to look for in this season that's coming up, but we also need to congratulate some of our teams last year that really did well too.
Yeah, and what we should mention, Orchard Park, Lancaster, who's also formidable opponents in this Class AA, they lost a lot of really good seniors. Micah Harry, a 2-time Connolly Cup finalist. You had Luke Prince on the line, who we know very well. You have Dylan Evans, Ben Gosella. They were all seniors, so a lot of open spots in those 2 programs, especially for new players to fill in.
Well, Niagara Falls and Hutch Tech should be a very interesting class, and usually, lately, Bennett and Lancaster and Orchard Park have kind of battled it out for the top, and I would expect it to be similar this season.
Have a newcomer, though, also. Putting Jamestown in there, with the big boys is And even Frontier, they have a lot of
Frontier
players coming back.
With the big boys, right?
Yeah.
And all of them been there, done it. They've also experienced this.
It's a wide open league. It really is. There's a lot of parity in the league this year.
So who's bringing back the most players from last year?
Well, I think Frontier is. If you go by offensive starters, Frontier has 8 on the offense, 8 on the defense. Set in right now to be starters. They were starters on both sides of the ball last year. I think Jamestown probably has outside of Bennett. Jamestown, they've had Drake for a long time as their quarterback, so it's going to be an adjustment without Trey. The Division I quarterback Trey Drake. So there's a lot of things to look forward to. There really is.
You know what
because I know you want to get into the preview. That's what you're getting into. This is what I want to answer your question though, right? Your question was, what about though all these missing pieces? Guess what? Lancaster, Orchard Park, Jamestown, every year run into that same exact issue. It ain't a problem. They are already set. They knew what they've got in place. Trust me, we've got the kids in place right now at Lancaster, at Jamestown, at Orchard Park that there is no doubt are ready to take that.
They're football
turn.
factories. Yep. And the programs that are successful, the ones you just mentioned, they're successful every year because they keep building from the ground up, and like you said, they fill in holes.
I don't even want to say from the ground up. It comes from the youth programs
exactly.
that we talk
right.
about there, right?
Yeah.
Lancaster putting out 3 different teams in the youth programs, right? At every age level.
Yep.
Orchard Park putting out 2 at every age level, right? Jamestown, one of the strongest programs we've seen down there, and it's the biggest area down there. Trust me, they've all got feeder programs to help them out.
And the kids get to know each other, and there's something to be said about playing together that long.
You know what? Before we get more into it after the break, I do want to pull up that graphic once again because there's always realignments, there's always new teams. So here are so Tim, why don't you just run through real quick? Just let's list them off, the teams in Class AA, because it changes every year.
Yep. So we have Hutch Tech, who we talked about. Obviously, the Bennett Tigers, the state champions, Niagara Falls Wolverines, Lancaster Legends. We mentioned Jamestown moving up to AA this year. We talked about Orchard Park, the Quakers, and then another team coming up to AA is Frontier.
All right. How about we take a quick break and we'll come back with some players to watch. You're watching Western New York Athletics High School Football Preview Show.
You're watching another live stream production by 300 Level Media, LLC. 300 Level Media can highlight your business by incorporating commercials, live reads, and corporate logos throughout our WNY Athletics events. WNY Athletics is the premier high school sports streaming service in New York State, covering regular season contests through the state championships and everything in between, with over 1 million views annually. If you are interested in advertising with any of our platforms, please visit our Become a Sponsor page at WNYathletics.com.
Welcome back to our Western New York's Athletics High School Football Preview Show. We're talking about Class AA here. We're going to go over to Tim Chifa, who's going to run down some of the teams in the division.
Okay, so we'll start with Hutch Tech. Obviously had a tough season last year. They were 0-9. This is Coach Harris's 3rd year as the head coach. They do have some players returning. They have 4 offensive players, 3 defensive players. One of the players that the coach wanted us to highlight, his name is Delonte Frisbee, a big 6'3", 315 lineman, plays both sides of the ball. And then they have a pair of receivers that had pretty good stats last year in Ismail Adams and Romeo Kidd. Both play receiver, both coming back this year. So those are some players to look forward to for Hutch Tech. You move on to Bennett, which we talked about a little bit already. Bennett lost a lot of players. There's no getting around that. You lose players like Rashad Perry and Lewis. That's tough. Those are 2 Division I players that they lost. We mentioned Clemens, the cornerback, transferring to Georgia. So they obviously have some rebuilding to do, but Bennett is one of those teams that always find a way. We don't have much in Niagara Falls. They didn't return the emails for this show. They were 1-8 last year. Coach Don Bass will be back again with the Wolverines this year, so they look to improve upon a 1-win season from last year.
You look at those teams, and I think right now, I lost my Notes, of course.
It never fails.
I know. But again, you start with those teams, Hutch Tech, Niagara Falls, they're always rebuilding. They're rebuilding. Hopefully Micah Harris coming back for his second season. He can continue to bring that program up to a next level. We know we've heard a lot about him. He did great things when he filled it at McKinley. So right now, no reason to, there's still a lot of time for that Hutch Tech program to grow. And remember, they have the biggest beds in all of Western New York. So keep that in mind. They have bodies. It's just a matter of getting those kids out and getting them ready to play Class A football.
Yeah, it's tough when you go up against the big boys every week, and it can be a grind after a while. You just got to keep going. But the nice thing about right now is everyone is 0-0, and you never know what could happen, and you just get a couple wins going, you get some confidence, and anything can happen.
All right, we're going to take another quick break, and then we're going to come back with predictions on.
We have a few more teams too.
Sorry.
You
Go ahead.
Just want me to say something on those three teams is. Hutch Tech, I thought last year had a very good line, right? Unfortunately, didn't have the skilled players to go with the line to really help out. If they can get some skilled players behind that line, watch out. Hutch Tech could be that dangerous team to knock off a team, especially if you think that's going to be an automatic win. It won't happen, especially if that line gives them time. Look at the game against Lancaster that we did with Hutch Tech. That line is the reason that was a game right there, even as close as it was for as long as it was. Bennett. I'm going to look at one thing. Yes, I say it every single time, but really the replacement, they've got the skilled players. I'm not worried about Bennett in any skilled position. They got them, and they're ready to bring them back. Yeah. The question will be the line. Can the line do what they did last year, give them the time, give them the appropriate things that they need?
And such a huge part of their offense.
Absolutely.
Huge part.
Especially if you want to run the ball. You want to run the ball, you better have the line to open those gaps for you. And then the third team, Niagara Falls. Niagara Falls was a little the opposite of what you saw with Hutch Tech. They had the skilled players, didn't really give you the line to get in there. You've got to be disciplined on that line. They need that discipline, and they need the communication to be the same. From wideouts all the way into that line. That communication happens. They work together. Niagara Falls is still capable of being a very dangerous team.
Now?
Yeah.
Okay. Want to remind everybody you're watching Western New York Athletics High School Football Preview Show. We're coming to you from the Big Tree Inn in Orchard Park. We'll be back right after this short break.
Logistics Plus is a global transportation provider headquartered in Erie, PA, with locations worldwide, including right here in Western New York. Logistics Plus is consistently recognized as a fast-growing transportation and logistics company, great supply chain partner, top freight broker, leading project cargo manager, and a great place to work. With a strong passion for excellence, our 500-plus employees put the plus in logistics.
For an efficient, personal approach for all of your transportation needs, more information about our Buffalo office is available at logisticsplus.com/Buffalo.
Welcome back to Western New York Athletics High School Football Preview Show. We're coming to you from the Big Tree Inn, and we still have some other teams that we haven't talked about. Lancaster had a few losses, but as you mentioned, they've got quite a program, and those replacements are in place and ready for their opportunity.
Yeah, so we'll start with Lancaster Legends, and we talked about them earlier in the show. They're a football factory, one of the premier football programs in all of Western New York, without a doubt. They're coming off an 8-2 season. They're returning three offensive starters, 5 defensive starters. The coach said that Coach Rupp is his 8th year. This is the youngest team they've had since 2016. But he also believes it's one of the deepest teams that he's had in a very long time also. Some of the returning players, Aiden Willard is a tight end, had a real nice year last year. Tyler Tedesco, he's a defensive back. Also Brendan Mahoney, another defensive back. So they have 2 of their cornerbacks coming back, their starters. They have 70 tackles between the 2 of them, 4 interceptions between the 2 of them. So going to be a tough team to throw on, that's for sure. Jaden Cohen is a receiver coming back. And they also have a very good kicker who is going for some school records, they said, for field goals this year. We move on to one of the newcomers in the AA, which is Jamestown. Obviously another school that is always in the mix of Western New York championships all the time, no matter what division they're in. And we talked about earlier also, this is the first time in a long time you're not going to see Trey Drake as their quarterback.
4 years.
4 years,
Yeah.
exactly.
4
I mean,
years.
it's a
He was as a
long time.
freshman, you remember.
Absolutely. They are returning five players on the offensive side for starters, 6 on the defensive side. One of the premier running backs in Western New York is coming out of Jamestown. His name's Carson Bain. He had over 1,200 yards rushing last year and 18 touchdowns, and that's from a team that threw the ball quite a bit. So I don't have his average per carry, but it's probably a lot.
He actually looked at it too. He came on. It seemed to be later in the season too, right? You know what I mean? So he's somebody that came up with those yards later on in the season, really, versus the beginning part of the season. So he could be a guy that could come out right from the gates to be, something that they looked up, because Jamestown always has been known as a team that can run the ball and run the ball effectively.
And especially as the weather gets worse too. That's good timing for Bain to pick up. They have a receiver, Carson Pambianco. His brother was the player of the year a few years back. He's going into, I think, his junior year. He's been out there for a couple of years now. He had 740 yards, 17 touchdowns last year, so that's a ridiculous sophomore season. And then they have Jack Carlson, defensive back, 54 tackles and 4 interceptions by himself. So they have some talent coming back. There's no doubt about it. So Jamestown will certainly be in the mix. We move on to Orchard Park. The Quakers were 7-2 last year. They're returning 4 on the offensive side, 4 on the defensive side. Similar to Jamestown, this is the first time in a while without Casella at quarterback. So an adjustment for Coach Cizik. Am I saying that right?
Cizik.
It's his second year as a head coach, right after replacing Coach Dana. It looks like Carson Hayek might be the quarterback right now. Should be penciled in at least.
Lefty quarterback,
Lefty
too,
quarterback.
right? You got a
That
lefty
makes it
quarterback coming in.
interesting.
Yep.
Yeah, so
Kind of flips the field for everybody.
and again, so another team with just so many players in the bullpen, if you will. Orchard Park, a great football program as always. So they'll be right in the mix. And then the final team.
See, but remember here, right? And I agree with you, but not necessarily that these kids have to get used to. These kids that you're going to see come on were the ones playing with him on JV and on modified and on freshman. They've already seen it and know what his throw is going to be like. There's no we're going to need a lot of time to get used to it.
Yeah.
They are already used to him.
Yeah, exactly. And I think one of the biggest things for especially like underclassmen, your first year or two on varsity, you're a deer in the headlights. Yeah. It's way faster. It's everyone hits harder. And now that you're used to it, you got a year under your belt, you can really take advantage of that experience that you had. And we mentioned the last team going into AA this year, moving up is Frontier. We talked about them earlier. One of the teams out of all of Western New York that has the most players returning as far as starters, 8 on the offense, 8 on the defense. So they were 5-4 last year. So a very reputable year, and they can do some damage in the AA for sure. They have a quarterback coming back, Rob Kibler. He was more of a rushing quarterback last year, had over 500 yards on the ground, 9 touchdowns. So look for him to do some damage this year also.
I think Lancaster, Orchard Park kind of in the same boat where I think it's, and Jamestown too, it's about their coaching staffs that those coaching staffs has built up so much trust and equity from people in the Western community that we know that even though we don't know who's exactly going to be the cast of stars, we know that there's going to be someone from Lancaster after 2 weeks that we're going to talk about. They're like
I was just gonna say
one of the top guys. Orchard Park, same type of deal, and it says a lot about those programs and what they're building. Is the fact is, we don't know who it is going to be, but we're pretty sure that there's a good chance that someone from those teams, probably a couple somebodies, are going to be in the conversation for Player of the Year and big awards like that, Connolly Cup, other awards like that.
I think like you mentioned earlier, Tom, the same thing with Orchard Park and Bennett is Orchard Park had a really good line last year, and are they able to replenish the line like they have in the past, and give their quarterbacks and running backs some holes and some time to throw the ball and run the ball.
So their line was young out last year, outside of Luke.
Yeah.
So they're bringing back a lineman that could be a Conley Cup finalist this year, right? A wrestler that really knows how to go on the line. I also remember with Orchard Park, they're bringing back a running back that now has experience. Did get hurt at the end of the year, but you're bringing him back as a junior with experience, right? So there are some big things out there to really look for. If you look for every one of these, right? Lancaster, Orchard Park, right? Jamestown. Jamestown's bringing back a key piece, a running back. Orchard Park bringing back a key piece, a running back, right? Lancaster bringing back some key positional players, right? That will also be a part of that. Those are the key, and then they start building off of that at what happens. And then I'm going to add Bennett into this, because if you think Coach McDuffie's not going to be ready and have his team going, you're crazy, because you know that's exactly what's going to happen, is that he'll be in the mix too.
Yeah, and there are positions coming back that are natural leaders also, and the players coming up are just going to feed off that naturally.
Yep. And by the way, this Carson Hand kid, this kid's going to be good. He really is. And his only unfortunate thing, as he'll say, is he had to stand behind an incredible quarterback in Ben Gasella.
Right.
But he gets his time now, right? He gets his moment in the time. And we'll talk about it a little bit, what our predictions are, but it's going to be a fun year.
All right, we're going to take a quick break. You are watching the Western New York Athletics High School Football Preview Show, coming to you from the Big Tree Inn. We'll take a quick break and be back with our predictions for Class AA after this short break.
Western New York Immediate Care's new locations are now open. Whether you've suffered a minor injury or just aren't feeling well, Western New York Immediate Care provides safe, quick, high-quality care at an affordable cost. Our clinicians are trained to diagnose and treat non-life-threatening injuries and illnesses, and are equipped with on-site x-ray and labs to help you feel better, faster. With 4 convenient locations open 7 days a week, Western New York Immediate Care is here to help when and where you need us. Visit us online to learn more.
Welcome back to the Western New York Athletics High School Football Preview Show. AA is our class, and we are coming to you from the Big Tree Inn. And now we're going to make some predictions, and since they came back to me, I'm going to make my prediction first. And I think, Tom, you alluded to this earlier, that Bennett has all kinds of skill players. So I'm going to pick the Bennett Tigers to repeat in a wildly competitive and fun division to watch. I'll go with Bennett and Coach McDuffie and all those skills players, because he'll find the linemen, they'll coach them up, and the skill players will make things happen.
All right, I'll go next. I have to agree with you, Sue. I think it's Bennett. They're the chance from last year, and you look at what they bring back versus what the other schools bring back. And I mentioned before, there's going to be someone from Lancaster. There's going to be someone from all these schools we're going to hear about that is going to take over. For right now, who am I going to put my trust in? Jameer Thomas. He's the one coming back. He was one of the best Robins in all of Western New York. He would have been a Batman on most other teams, I think, in the area if he was the star. His only problem was he was with Jaden Lewis. But, yeah, right now I got to trust them. Right now they have something special going at Bennett. I think the younger McDuffie is going to come up, possibly be that running back, and allows Jameer to go to wide receiver. They can take care of that quarterback position, find some more linemen. I think they're still the favorites in AA. Now, is it going to be tough for them to get back to the state? Definitely. But I think right now in Section 6, I think they're the favorites to win it.
I'm going to go a little different route. I'm going to go with who basically is struggled, or Bennett has basically owned the last couple of years. I'm going to go with Lancaster. I think they are going to rebuild this season. I think they're going to get Bennett back for the last couple of years. I am in awe with the program that Lancaster has and that Coach Rupp has. It's just I don't mean to keep saying it, but it's a football factory there. And I'm really impressed with Lancaster every year, and I think they will find a way to get it done this year.
Okay, so here's what I think. I think that if you predict the game right now, which is going to be played right here at the stadium, right over next to us here at the Big Tree, how do you say it's not Bennett and Lancaster at this point? Lancaster's done it for how many years?
I think, what was it?
He's going into his 8th year, so how many is it?
So it was 2 years ago. I think it was what if they going 6, 7 in a row?
Right, but they still went to the stadium.
No. I'm not arguing with you.
So in other words, what I'm saying is they still went to the stadium.
Yeah.
Right? Are you going to bet against Lancaster not sitting in one of those spots at the stadium right now? I'm not.
No.
Right? Mm-hmm. And then Bennett, I'm sorry, you just were state champions. Until you prove to me that you don't have the team there, I got to go with the state champions right now and say that's exactly where it is. Now, does that mean that I don't think Orchard Park, Jamestown, Frontier, right? Are 3 of them in there that aren't going to have a stake or a claim in this? No, I'm not saying that at all. I'm saying that's where the bets are. So, still got to figure some things out. I want to see the line for Bennett, right? That's going to be the big thing. I want to see the quarterback and the skilled players for Lancaster. I want to see the quarterback for Orchard Park, right? I want to see how the line looks like for Orchard Park, right? So some big things. Jamestown, we got to see a quarterback come in there, right? Who's the quarterback? What does he look like?
Keep this in mind. Remember, just 2 years ago, they had a Connolly Cup winner as a running back.
Absolutely.
They led a running back to the Connolly Cup. So,
but you had a quarterback there to support him, though, right? You had a quarterback that could, if you were stuffed down, that could throw the ball and open up the running game for you still, right?
Yeah.
So you still need a quarterback that's going to show what he did as a freshman.
And Lancaster kind of been their kryptonite the last couple of years, too.
So, I mean, that's really what you're talking about. Frontier coming back up to the AA. They've been there before, so this isn't like this is anything new right there. But he'll tell you he was young last year, but what I've been loving about what I've been seeing Coach Gray do is what you're seeing in the youth. He's come down doing from everything from modified, all the programs, building a program over at Frontier. The numbers he's getting for the off-season workouts are incredible right now. I'll tell you, Frontier's going to be a team that you're going to see that's going to sustain things because of what Coach Gray is doing. The question is, does he have enough right there? And your quarterback is a running quarterback. Can some of these big, strong teams be able to shut that down? He's going to have to be able to go to the air, too.
All right. Anybody else? Final thoughts? We're good?
No, I think that's it.
All right. Well, thank you for watching the Western New York Athletics Class AA High School Football Preview Show. We're coming to you from the Big Tree Inn, and we're going to have other shows on the other classes here on Western New York Athletics. Thank you for watching, and we'll have a good night, everybody.